Thank you. Please be seated. The Commissioner's Office was very saddened to hear of the passing of the pathonetary. As a memorial for both Sue Kaczynski as well as Dave Perillo, the Commissioners have purchased 2 dogwood trees to be planted out in the courtyard. We'll hopefully have them planted in the next couple of weeks, and plaques commemorating their lives and service to the county will also be placed there as well. Please remember that the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the county's YouTube channel in the coming days and weeks. So anything said here is part of public record and will be posted publicly. I also wanted to take a moment to welcome Basil Huffman, Forest County Commissioner. Thank you very much for joining us today. Since the last meeting, there were no executive sessions technically. We were together for a retirement meeting on the 5th of September to meet with C.S. McKee, where they presented us information but no decisions were made. Also the same day, we met with the elections office, at least Commissioner Eggleston and I did. I don't believe Commissioner Morrison was there, to talk about voting machine replacements, where she presented us with quotes. Again, no decisions were made. I'm not aware of any significant correspondence received since the last meeting. Commissioners, can you think of any correspondence received you want to raise, or any executive sessions that I missed?
I have all the updated quotes, correct, Lisa?
I'm getting a few updated quotes. I have not sent them out yet. I'm waiting for one company to send me their quote.
Thank you.
Once I have them all, send them all out.
Thank you.
At this time, I would entertain anyone who has something they'd like to raise before the Board of Commissioners that is not on the agenda. You can have up to a couple minutes to present at this time. Hearing none, we will move on. The agenda is before you. The only change that I'd like to make is a quick vote on the County Emergency Operations Plan. I don't anticipate it being controversial, so it should only take a moment, and that way we'll free up staff to go back to their jobs. And then we'll be looking at the Human Services Summit Report, Act 13 Fund Request, repository bids, and proposal for the parking lot. Any changes to the agenda?
Freehold Township and Brokenstraw fall under Act 13, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. I don't know why it's 2 lines. All right. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes from August 22nd? Do they meet with your approval? Then we'll move on to the fiscal report.
The fiscal report you have in front of you, the general fund has about $1.1 million currently. We start receiving tax receipts, and the Erie Bank still has the same, roughly $200,000 in there. Healthcare came in after I sent the estimate out, a little higher, about $80,000 this past week. But it was already after I printed this out, and no change in the TAN in terms of request for cash flow on that.
Any idea when we'll be able to pay it back?
Not quite yet.
Okay. Any questions for the fiscal director? Public questions? Very well. We'll briefly read 2 proclamations. Commissioners, I'm familiar with both, but would either of you want to read one?
I'll take Zonta.
Okay. You want to read fire? Well, you'll be talking later. Commissioner Morrison, go ahead and read the Zonta Club celebrating 90 years.
Zonta Club of Warren celebrating 90 years. Whereas the word Zonta means honest and trustworthy, and is derived from the language of the Native American Sioux. It was adopted by Zonta International in 1919 to symbolize the combined qualities of honesty and trust, inspiration, and the ability to work together for service and world understanding. Whereas on September 27, 1928, the Zonta Club of Warren received its charter from Zonta International. Zonta Club of Warren celebrates 90 years as part of a global network of professionals committed to equal rights and life free of violence for all women and girls. We strive to empower women worldwide through service and advocacy. Whereas Zonta International envisions a world in which women's rights are recognized as human rights, women locally, nationally, and worldwide face issues that affect their safety, economic status, and well-being. Warren Zonta supports these causes through monetary donations, assembling birthing kits to send to third world countries. We work with various communities, organizations, on local projects, and for many years we have awarded scholarships to deserving non-traditional students in Warren County. Whereas we look back on the 90 years of history, the support and betterment of Warren County has been at the core. From spearheading the local March of Dimes campaign for many years, supporting the plan to construct a pool, affiliations with the Girl Scouts, Salvation Army, and Warren General Hospital, the Cancer Care Center, as well as a safe place. Whereas on September 29, 2018, our local Zonta Club of Warren, one of the first to be incorporated, will celebrate 90 years of service to our community. As we look back on all they have accomplished, they also look forward to many more years of friendship with each other and service to Warren County, and the hope of a better and brighter world for all. Now therefore be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Commissioners hereby wishes the Zonta Club and its supporters a joyous 90th anniversary, adopted this 12th day of December by the Warren County Commissioners.
Thank you. Any comments? Public comment? Moving on to the second proclamation then. We are passing a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, which is October 7th and through the 13th. Whereas the County of Warren is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Warren County, and whereas U.S. fire departments responded to an average of 358,500 home structure fires per year during 2011 to 2015, these fires caused 12,300 civilian injuries, 12,510 civilian deaths, and $6.7 billion in direct damage. And whereas, on average, 7 people died in U.S. home fires per day, with cooking being the leading cause of home fires and home fire injuries, and smoking being the leading cause of home fire deaths for decades. Whereas newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older home constructions, and whereas many of today's products and furnishings produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments. And whereas these conditions contribute to a much smaller window of time for people to escape a home fire safely, with people having as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape from the time the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation, a home fire plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, smoke alarms in all required locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting. And whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household, and whereas Warren County's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protective education, and whereas Warren County residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes, and whereas the 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme, Look, Listen, Learn, effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of developing a home fire plan, escape plan, with all members of the household and practicing it twice a year. Therefore, we, the Commissioners of Warren County, do hereby proclaim October 7th through the 13th of 2018 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the county. We urge all the people of Warren County to develop a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practice it twice a year, and to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of Warren County's fire and emergency services during Fire Prevention Week 2018, adopted today. One of the reasons that we hold the Public Safety Fair annually, starting last year, is exactly this. Primarily, we want to let kids have access to fire apparatus and get to know firefighters so that they're not scared in incidents. And we also want to make sure that the public is aware of what they do and try to get them to help out their local fire departments in some way. but an equally important reason for having the public safety fair is training. So I want to take this moment to thank all fire departments in the county, and also thank the Department of Public Safety for the work they do in supporting them, and for the excellent work that they did hosting the Public Safety Fair this past weekend. And we are again looking to have it the first weekend of September 2019. I believe that's September 7th.
Second weekend.
No, it's the 7th. Okay, right, second weekend. Right.
Well, Saturday after Labor Day.
Right.
Everybody's going to Christmas.
So September 7th, you can go ahead and mark your calendar tentatively. Any comments from the board?
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Kafferlin and Todd Lake and Ken McCorson for their excellent job with the Public Safety Fair this past weekend. I was with the Lions Club working there, so I got there late with my kids, but they still were able to see a lot of the displays and a lot of different stuff. It was just, the atmosphere was wonderful. It was very positive. It was very interesting with so much equipment, so much interesting things to look at. I think that it's one of the best events that I've been to. I think that you guys did a fantastic job, and you continue to, so thank you, both, everyone.
Thank you. Any other comment? Public comment? At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes from August 22nd, the fiscal report, and the 2 proclamations that were read.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is properly made and seconded. Any discussion from the board? Public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There's no old items of discussion on the agenda today. Quickly, we do want to do the county operations plan. This was presented to us at our work session this past Monday. It's not in here as it's an 80-some page document. We didn't want to kill another tree. But again, this is the plan that is updated periodically. Todd, did you want to say anything more?
No, it's just the full county emergency operations plan for a large disaster, large-scale incident, how we would react to that incident. ESS, which is Emergency Support Functions, who would come in and assist with that type of an incident. Pay all the bills, things like that. A lot of emergency procedures. We completely rewrote it in 2010, right? Not long after I became the public safety director, completely rewrite it. The state likes it to be rewritten or fully reviewed every 5 years, which we'd have been doing 15, but we do review it once a year, and it's met the state's approval, so I just asked the commissioners to consider promulgate it. We'll follow all those rules and regulations of emergencies. Hopefully we don't have it. There's not a lot of changes in it. We don't have, there's no any kind of a change in our hazard vulnerability analysis of transportation, studies we've done, our commodity flow studies, hazard mitigation plan. Nothing's really changed, so there's no major changes to the plan.
Okay, thank you. This was emailed to you 3 weeks ago. If you had any questions for Todd at this time, you could ask them. If not, it will be on public display at the 911 center if the commissioners want to view it.
And even the basic plan we can put on the website.
Sure.
Obviously, we won't have the tactics or notification and resource manual is not a public document.
I'd like to see that there.
Yeah, they might as well. We just have it over. I think when we promulgated it the last time, the website wasn't doing well, so it's never got put on there. And now that it's promulgated again, there's no reason why it's not on the bigger, better website.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, any questions from the board? Do I hear a motion to promulgate the county emergency operations plan?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Eggleston is up now for the Health Summit report.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is do a presentation, and then I've presented a resolution 3113 that's related to the Human Services. You guys didn't have to do that. You could have snuck around.
I do apologize to you, Commissioner. I was involved in some of this, and I think it's a wonderful...
Todd, it's okay. You can go.
No,
It's okay.
there's people in here that spent a lot of time and a lot of work on this. And I apologize that I do have to leave, but it's for having a child in the system that I adopted, it's very good to see this starting to take effect.
Thank you, Todd. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize to everyone. I wanted to go around and shake everybody's hand as they came in. Unfortunately, I was experiencing technical difficulties, as they say. Fortunately, we had Linda Kreitzer, our IT professional, in the courthouse come up and fix the machine in order that I could do my presentation. So, the presentation I'm going to do today is going to involve an introduction to what this summit report is about, why it came to be, who was involved in it. There are many people here today that were involved in it and were part of the summit. And then kind of talk about what we're going to do going forward in order to initiate some of the items that were identified as a part of the report. So first things first, I wanted to, and I'd also state that this is going to be, I'm going to try to do this as fast as I possibly can. I realize that all of you many of you are busy working, and so you want to get out of here, so I'm going to try to run through this. This is an 80-page report, so there's a lot of information into it that I'm going to try to condense down. I'm just going to focus on a couple of points for each of the focus areas, so I urge you to take a look at the report and kind of read through it because there's a lot of data in it. So first, I wanted to thank a few people. First of all, I wanted to thank Adam McNeil. He's the Executive Director of the Forest Warren Mental Wellness Association. Frankly, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him. He was one of the first people that I brought this idea to or started discussing with, and he was very motivated and interested. Really helped guide me through the process, helped select people, do different things. I can't say enough. Plus, on the day he set most of the stuff up, it was a real Johnny on the spot with trying to get things together for it. Second is Chuck Gray. I assumed that she would have been here today, but I'm not sure. Maybe she had an appointment. From Warren Entrepreneurship, she was the coordinator that basically coordinated the summit and collected all the data related to it, and then put the report together, the first draft of it. Did an amazing job, as usual. The talk. We were allowed to use their facility at no cost. I highly recommend for those of you who are looking for a space in order to conduct a conference or some kind of meeting to really think about the space above the talk, which is the Allegheny Community Center. They have several really nice spaces that they were willing to rent or even donate to nonprofits in order to have a good space downtown. It's superb. I'd like to thank the 30-plus people, the different individuals that attended. It was probably actually more like 40 or 50 over the course of the 4 days. Most of them were providers. Some of them were family members. All contributed enormous amounts of information and kind of set all of their preconceptions about what it was going to be prior to the event, and showed up and just gave their best over what ended up being 4 pretty grueling days. So I'd like to thank the family members, especially on family night. We got so much good information from them on family night, and a lot of people who couldn't make it sent me information in between that we incorporated into the report as well. So I can't say enough about family engagement in the community, and the more we can encourage it, the better these types of projects are going to be. I'd like to state, just for the record, how positive my experience was with the human services professionals in Warren County as a part of this effort. I don't think it gets stated enough, the notion that most of the people that are involved in human services, or many of them, have family members or different people in their life that have a passion for human services. There's no person that wakes up one day and says, you know what, I really want to make a lot of money. I think I'm going to be a social worker. Like, nobody says that. They do it because they love it, because they're passionate about it, because they're interested in it, and that came through certainly in the report. Or in the event, was that the people that were involved were very passionate about providing quality human services. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to talk about how this all came about. So basically, we have been having numerous conversations about the state of human services in the county and all the different providers and different people that are involved in it. Many years ago, privatization became an issue in human services, where the state stopped essentially providing services and then contracted it out to various agencies all over the country in a variety of different places. So over time, what's happened is you have a bunch of different providers providing different services, all competing with each other as a part of this process. And what happens, in my opinion, is that there's a fracturing of service. So you have all of these different agencies competing for funds, competing for resources, and it can create a lot of communications issues, a lot of issues with collaboration. And I think that that's kind of where we came at this in Warren County, was we really wanted to create a setup where we could bring all of the human services folks together to have a conversation and think at a very high level about what the future of human services in Warren County and Forest County should look like. At the time, there was a lot of conversations about systems of care, which is something that we'll discuss as a vehicle to bring everybody together in order to have an event that would be this kind of big highfalutin discussion. The challenge really with it was, how do you organize it? How do you get information out of it? How do you make it a useful undertaking? And so at the time, or at the end of last year, I was putting together the marketing task force, and we had our first meeting, and Chuck Gray was involved. I was moderately familiar with Chuck just through a couple of passing acquaintances, and she turned out to be a McNellis compression planning certified planner, whatever. I don't know what the technical term is, but she pitched doing compression planning to the marketing task force, which was a small group of 7 people, in order to figure out ways to improve marketing within the county. At the time when she pitched it to me, I thought it was a bunch of hooey. I've worked a lot in different corporate environments, and I'm not a fan of kind of putting stickers on things and voting on stuff and trying to get everybody to get buy-in. I mean, as soon as she started talking about it, I immediately glazed over, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be associated with that. She didn't trust me, so we did it as a part of the marketing task force, and I was shocked at how effective it was in pulling information from competing interests. In that group, there were a lot of different people that had, that had different interests, even with funding and a number of other things. Through that process, they were able to set it aside and then really have a conversation about what was best for the county. And so at the time when we were doing that, my first thought was, we need to do this for human services. With all of the different providers, all the different interests in human services, that I felt like it was the only way that we would get everybody together and have a meaningful discussion. So basically sat down with Adam and Mary Kushner initially and had a discussion about how we could put this together, and then basically came up with a bid pitch or a grant pitch to BHARP and to System of Care in order to grant fund this, in order to get to have resources in order to put it together. We ended up successfully pitching that, and then basically we started working with Chuck and a couple other people in order to schedule the summit. Basically, the summit ended up being a 4-day event. The first day was Family Day, where we had different family members come in, and then basically they went through a mini compression planning session. I'm not going to describe what compression planning is. It's just because it's too involved, but basically it gives people an opportunity to put a lot of feedback out all at once, and it's collected on different note cards that are then converted into notes. We then scheduled 3 days of compression planning, which turned into, there were basically 6 to 8 hour days each day, where everybody came in and then basically started working in that environment in order to put information out. Nobody, including the people that put the event together, had any idea how it was going to work, which was actually a good thing because I think everybody kind of walked into it blindly, and as a result, we got probably the most honest perspective on a lot of the information that was gathered as a result of the event. One really important aspect of the summit was prior to the actual summit, Chuck Gray went and met with all the people that were invited, whether they RSVP'd or not, whether they were available to attend or not. Basically had a survey that we put together in order to get feedback from them prior to the actual summit, so that the day we walked in, we had a laundry list of issues to discuss right out of the gate. And the really fascinating thing about it is that on the first day of the family day, we were really surprised at how much the interviews with the providers and different individuals matched up with what the families were requesting through the family day. I mean, it matched up very closely, so closely that we ended up kind of ditching our plan and then basically taking the family's feedback and then bringing it to the summit the first day, and then using that to set up all of the focus areas that you see in the report. So basically we went through it for 4 days. Then over the past few months, we've basically been gathering all the data from those cards and then kind of putting it together in a digestible format for a report. There were challenges because we really wanted to incorporate Forest County into the summit. One of the big challenges was we had a ceiling of 30 people. We really felt that if we had more than 30 people at the summit, it was going to create problems as far as logistically trying to get all the data together. With the 25, 30 people that we had show up every day, it was really hard just with that to try to keep everything under control. So I'm glad that we did it the way we did. As a result, we just focused on Warren County with the notion of having a Forest County summit afterwards. There were a lot of challenges with trying to get the Forest County summit together. So basically what we ended up doing was having a digital summit with Forest County where we sent out all kinds of different surveys to different people and then gathered data through that in order to put together a supplement report. And when you go through that, you see it lines up almost exactly with what was in the Warren County report. I think with Forest County there are more challenges as far as the amount of services that are provided, or the number one thing is trying to get more services there. So I just wanted to state that. So, and while I'm talking, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to raise your hand. I'm going to go run through the report right now. There are basically 5 focus areas in the report. Aside from those 5 focus areas, there's also a list of other bulleted items that didn't specifically identify with the 5 focus areas, but are a part of the report as well. So I would suggest looking through those too, because there's a lot of really great ideas in there. So the 5 focus areas really were identified by the families and then addressed through the providers in the subsequent 3 days. The 5 focus areas are accessible map of human service offerings, continuity of care, human services concierge, reduced wait and response times, increased service providers and services, professional interagency code of conduct. So 2 of those are going to be pretty easy to address. 3 of them are going to be really difficult to address. But all of them have real major implications for people receiving services within the county. So the first one I think is probably, it's not the easiest out of the bunch to address, but it's the one that I think is, I think it's one that's incredibly important, and kind of all the other ones are tied into it. So some of the items within this area of focus, and I'll just give you a general picture perspective on it, is the accessible map of human service offerings. Because there are so many different providers and there's so many different people involved in human services, it's really difficult to know where to go to get information. And every agency, every individual has different information, has different perspectives on who you should talk to, where we should go. And it's really difficult as a user in order to navigate that information. And as a result, you'll have people that'll be receiving services, like a specific service,
and could really benefit from a couple others and have no idea that they actually even exist. So everybody kind of acknowledged that. That was something that everybody bought into right out of the gate. And so with this particular item, we're going to try to address it. And like I said, there are more bullet points than the ones I'm going to identify, but I'm going to focus on the ones that I think are majorly important and also that I think are doable. So first one is identify all organizations that provide services, just generally speaking. This has already been started, and this is one of the benefits of the summit, is that we reinitiated the directory that was essentially being created by Jefferson DeFreeze Family Center. That kind of got left by the wayside. And I should thank Stephanie Sturtevant, because she's the new System of Care project director, and she's been spearheading this whole directory and working with Jefferson DeFreeze in order to put that together. So they're identifying all of the organizations and then putting contact information and other information together as part of like a printed directory. This is the first step in doing this larger mapping the system initiative. Second is a literal map of the system in both a printed and a digital format. The focus initially is going to be the digital format, and then the print formats I think going to come afterwards. This would include all service providers, contacts, lists of services, include downloadable forms, brochures, tutorial videos, channels for popular offerings. So basically the discussion that we've had with this is basically completely redoing the Forest Warren Human Services website in order to be a hub for all information related to human services, including not just literature and lists of services and contact information and kind of the fundamentals, but also kind of coming up with channels related to popular offerings. So for instance, and I'm always going to use my own personal perspective, is your child is diagnosed autistic. What do you do? Who do you talk to? Where do you go? Having channels on the website that kind of take you through a step-by-step process of the different people that you would want to talk to in that kind of a situation, and make it a functional thing. We want it to be a situation where you go to the website and you can learn anything you want to know about human services in Warren County from it, and that it's easily accessible, easily understandable, easily navigatable. Another item is 211. For those of you who don't know, 211 was adopted within Warren County through the Community Foundation. I believe it was Community Foundation. And has been funded. The problem is that a lot of the data through 211 is not very accurate, or the setup there is not very reliable, and everybody acknowledged that. And so as part of this mapping the system is getting 211 to become a functional part of human services in Warren County, so that you can call 211 and actually get real information through it that's going to be updated on a regular basis, and then you're going to be able to navigate, again, the system through a phone call. And 211, again, is like 911 or 411. So that's the map of the system. The second one is continuity of care, human services concierge. This is third easiest. I still think this one's incredibly difficult. So basically with continuity of care, the concept that was identified through the summit is if you come into the system and say you get initiated with a specific provider and you're working with them for a period of time, and maybe you make a transition to another agency, or you go in a different direction in the system, you can have a completely different experience and have even less information provided, have no idea which direction you're going in, and in some cases just drop services completely because you feel like you're out of touch with like what's going on either with yourself or with your child. And so the goal with continuity care concept is to create an A to B line where you have some element or some piece of information or some person that kind of carries you through that entire experience, so that you have a constant fallback as far as having conversation, getting information, those types of things. That's where the concept of a system navigator or having a single point of contact. This isn't someone that's going to follow you around 24/7, but it's someone that you're going to be able to talk to while you're going from system to system and provide guidance, suggestions. Here's where you should go for information, these types of things. Another piece is a universal collection of data at the single point of entry. So one of the things we identified is, and I know this from personal experience, you can go to a provider and end up filling out the same form 3 times in one visit. That's a fact. And so we've got to figure out a way where, if you're going to receive services, is collecting like the general data or the data that's the most rudimentary in a format that everybody can utilize, like all the providers can utilize. Obviously there's security concerns and HIPAA concerns, and that would be a part of that equation. But the idea is a person comes in, does an entry, gets entered into the system, and that system is then shared with the network. This also ties into the reduced wait times and response times, because there's an element there of having like a passport or some kind of system where the data is entered and the person carries it with them from meeting to meeting, and whether through a flash drive or some kind of card or some other item, so there are concerns there of them losing that, but and a lot of logistical IT stuff, but that's stuff that'll be figured out later. So the third one is reduced wait times and response times. This one is the second most difficult, in my opinion, and a lot of that has to do with there's just so many moving parts in the system. The good thing is that everybody acknowledged that this is an issue and that they wanted to figure out ways in order to address it. As you all know, we have huge wait times to get evaluations, to get entered into service. There's wait times between the time you want to get service till the time that you actually even get, an initial visit. So a couple of things is one was the notion of an emergency services setup or a golden ticket, which is the idea of kind of parsing out, the different people that are involved in the system and figuring out cases that have extreme conditions and then moving them to the head of the line. Right now, as far as we can see, it's first come, first serve, and that's kind of the basis. I'm sure that there's different moving and that goes along with different things, but if you're in a crisis, there's really no way of addressing that in any kind of, what's the term I want to use? Hurry up the process and get that moving. So trying to figure out a way to make that a reality is a big priority. Having a crisis team to respond immediately. So this is something that a handful of counties do in the state of Pennsylvania, where they have a crisis team that basically, whether it's criminal justice or an individual call for help, if there's something that seems human services related, having a crisis team that shows up within a few minutes of the call and then does an evaluation of the situation and creates a report that can later be used in order to provide services, get people in for evaluations, determine what level of crisis that they're in, these types of things. And they've seen a huge difference in the counties that enact it, because their ability to address concerns is much quicker. If you have a criminal justice situation that someone gets involved in, it can be months before they're actually seen or anything happens to them, or even the courts, and it also gives more information for the courts to make a better determination as to what to do with a particular case. I talked about the passport bit already. They were talking also about live or group orientations, so the idea of having set orientations where someone comes into the system for the first time, they're a new person, a new parent, they can go to an orientation with other people that have the same kind of situation as them, have conversations about it, have people within the human services realm give them recommendations and more points of contact. Fourth one is probably the most difficult in my opinion, which is increased providers and services. One of the downsides, and this is where I start talking about my personal opinion. One of the downsides to privatization is that it works as long as there's a funding source. Unfortunately, the state, the federal government continues to cut human services funding, at the same time asking everybody to do more stuff. Like a good example of that would be the Sandusky laws that were passed recently, or passed a year or two ago. There were 24 new laws that all created an increased level of paperwork for children and youth. because they have to document all kinds of different stuff. So you actually have to allocate people in order to just fill out paperwork. None of those laws would have addressed Jerry Sandusky's case in any way, shape, or form. So it's created a huge amount of work, and at the same time not really prevented what it's named after. And there was no additional funding set aside by the state in order to help with all of the added workload that's being done. In every corner of human services in this county and in this state, you will see people that are, constantly asked to do more, constantly asked to produce more, and the reimbursement rates are not getting increased, and then on top of it, with privatization, you have multiple agencies providing services, so they're all competing with each other for funding. And as a result, they have limited resources to hire professionals in order to do the jobs that are needed. It's one of the reasons why it's a real challenge to get a psychiatrist in Warren County, because, frankly, the cost is very high, and an agency has to fork over quite a bit in order to get, quality professionals here. So, with that in mind, we're gonna just fix this like that, I can tell. The first part of it is to do a comprehensive needs assessment. So to have a deeper understanding of what the needs are of the community, what areas are underserved, and then have some kind of report related to that that's more detailed as far as, what areas can we easily improve on related to the needs of the community. Increasing interagency collaboration. When you have limited resources, you can't afford to fight with each other. It's just the way it is. You've got to figure out a way to work together and collaborate, or else you're just going to end up wasting a lot of money on a lot of redundant activity. There's talk about working with the Career Center and other educational resources in order to create channels for recruitment. One of the challenges that we have is that trying to get quality people in order to do work, in order to do these various jobs that are really difficult, dealing with a lot of challenging situations, and with limited funds, you've got to figure out a way to pick people out of the herd that are going to have a passion for this type of work, and then get them the qualifications in order to do it. A huge part of the report deals with advocacy, both at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. In fact, there's a whole nother, although there are 5 focus areas, you'll notice in the report there is a 6th committee, which is the legislative committee, because we really believe that we need to pull everybody together in the county in order to advocate for resources. A good example is, in order to get certified to do human services work in many of the jobs, you have to jump through 1,000 hoops in order to do it. And people who are already previously qualified have to do it anyway in order just to get certified to get them in the system. With what we're paying people in order to do human services, we can't expect people to have, every single person have a master's degree or some other type of requirement that's just almost impossible to achieve. As a result, your pool of workers is incredibly small, which is one of the biggest limiting factors in providing services, quality services to the community. So we've got to figure out a way to work with the state legislature and others in order to reduce regulations, have smarter regulations, figure out ways to streamline services, because really the choice now is, in some cases, is you either regulate the system and have no services, or you deregulate it and then provide something for people that need help. In my opinion, we're in some areas we're in that mode, like where the regulations are so ridiculous that you can't, it's not even, it's costing everybody money to prevent things that rarely ever happen. Of course, there are good regulations, I'm not going to poo-poo all of them. The 5th one is the one that I think is probably second, or probably the easiest to take care of, which is professional interagency code of conduct. A lot of this has to do with trying to create a culture of collaboration, a collegial culture within human services within the county, to understand that regardless of funding streams, regardless of personnel, you're all in the same boat. Like, we're here to help the community, we're here to serve the community, and the thing is that most of the people in human services are under an immense amount of stress and pressure as a result of their jobs. They're dealing with a lot of challenging situations. So the last thing you really want to do, although it's understandable that it's done, is circle the wagons and then point all the guns inwards, which is basically what happens a lot of times. We got to figure out a way to get everybody working together, understanding that we have a common purpose, which is to help people who have legitimate needs within the county, and also to do it in as professional an environment as possible. And this is something that was, frankly, I was surprised that it ended up in the report, but it was something that so many different people that, in the provider pool were having a discussion about it. It's something that became important. So, with all that in mind, basically what I'm proposing today is a resolution that does two things. One is it just simply affirms the findings in the report, which has been presented to the commissioners in advance of this meeting, and and it doesn't mean that we have to affirm every single item in the report, but that in general we support the effort. The second piece is to basically make or institutionalize a committee that is related to the Human Services Summit and this report in order to carry out the recommendations of the report. Within the report, you'll notice if you go through it, there are actionable items listed in it. One of the wonderful parts of the Human Services Summit and compression planning is at the end of it, you have to come up with an action plan. You have to come up with a list of things that need to be done in order for something to function. The goal of this committee is going to be to basically take those recommendations and then work to enact them as in an advisory capacity, both with the Department of Human Services, county, the various county providers, and a number of others. Since those committees are going to be made up of the providers and people involved in human services, I think that it'll be a very successful effort. And I think that there's quite a few things that we can get done within 6 or 8 months leading up to the next summit, which is going to be in May of next year. So since I could see everybody starting to yawn a lot more than they were at the beginning, I will cut it. I will end my presentation and basically give everybody an opportunity to ask questions or make comments.
Judy Baker, and I just, on page 62, when you have a list of the different individuals that were on these committees, you're not looking at validating these committees so much as creating a new advisory, is that right?
No, there's going to be one committee that's going to be that's going to take a look at the report and then carry it out. So they may decide to consolidate those, or just have one committee that just works. It's going to be up to them.
Is it going to be up to these individuals, or is it going to be up to the commissioners?
We're going to be sending emails out inviting people to be appointees on the committee. In the resolution, I basically start with 7 people, which is basically a commissioner and then 6 people that are going to be appointed. It doesn't have to be 7; it can be more than 7. In fact, I'll assume that it'll probably end up being 15 or 20 even. The goal is to get people that are interested in working, interested in supporting the effort. So, and then the commissioners will appoint them to the committee.
And just a little follow-up to that, only because this money that we got was from SAMHSA, from the federal government, and the whole reason for this creation is to have equal representation from professionals and family members. Mm-hmm. So I would like to ask the commissioners to make sure that when this new committee is formed, that we have equal representation from families, and we also need young adults, because unless there's things that you received, there's no mention of youth or young adults in this report. Mm-hmm. So I think in order to follow through with the guidelines from SAMHSA and the principles of systems of care, that needs to be incorporated. We need family members and we need young adults, because those are the individuals that are receiving the services. And as you know, Commissioner, I complained from the beginning about more family involvement, getting families involved. And I think the other main purpose behind this is inclusion, not seclusion. So when you had the family night meeting, that was for families, and then you had the professionals, that was not inclusion, that was exclusion. And those are my only things. Oh, and one more thing, on page 11, you have a statement here that's something about advocates create conflict. I don't think unless somebody sent into you a little statement, like you said, you got some from family members that weren't there. At the beginning, you said
If
you
it's
got
at page 11, it's very possible that that's part of like the feedback section, which
no, because at the beginning you say pages 10, 11, or anyways.
yeah.
Because I get calls all the time.
Mhm.
And I try very hard not to make things adversarial. What I try to do is give families the information they need
Mhm.
in order to get the help that they need.
Mhm.
And your 211 thing is absolutely right. I don't know if Warren County pays, Warren Forest pays into that, is to support that service. But just this week, I had a call from a family member that called 211, and whomever she talked to there couldn't give her any information, just didn't have any idea. So that concierge thing that you're looking at, I think we could build something, create a new service here in the county and have it manned for the hours that 211 is doing, because the information is not current and correct wherever that goes to. But those are my only things. I just want to make sure that we follow the principles of systems of care. I want to make sure that we have more families that are involved, and we've got to start bringing youth in, because those are the individuals that every agency, I don't care if it's a provider, if it's human services, if it's a court system, those are the individuals that you're going to be servicing down the road 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So that's what I would like to request the commissioners when you consider about forming a new advisory board. Thank you.
Judy. Joe?
As an interested citizen and a former supervisor, I'd like a copy of this report to review it. I haven't had the opportunity.
There are multiple copies outside on the
I'll
table,
pick
so
one up when I leave.
please pick one up. Also, this is going to be available online in a variety of different formats, so after the fact, if you want to circulate, you'll be able to forward it, and it'll be downloadable. Any other questions? Okay.
I did just want to note that 211 is not funded by the county, it's funded by the United Way.
United Way, yeah.
Judy, did you hear that?
Excuse me?
211 is not funded by the county.
It's funded
Well,
by
I didn't
United
know
Way.
I mean, I remember from before about talking about it, but we've got to be able to do a better job. Because the family member that I got a call from was from like 6 o'clock at night, and they were in crisis, and I said, well, there's a 211. She said, I called that this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that, and also only because of my involvement, like at the state level on different things, that crisis that you were talking about is something that we should really consider. It would be a great asset to the county. And even though we're small, we ought to be able to find some way to put something together to help families out. Thank you. Thank you.
211's funded by the state government.
It's a community foundation. I don't-
United Ways,
It's United Way.
for the most part.
Yeah, the only reason, they originally came to the counties to ask for funding, and one of the concerns that I had, and I think a lot of people shared it, was when they pitched it, they talked about how they had like call centers in Pittsburgh, and that they were going to have all the information. I'm like, we don't have all the information. How are they going to have all the information? So oddly, they have less information than we do. So. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for being a wonderful crowd. The yawn meter would stay very low most of the time, so I really appreciate that. Thank Basil for coming out. I really appreciate it. And Basil, if you got any questions about the Forest County stuff, please feel free to hit me up after the meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Resolution 3113 was mentioned in the Monday work session and then sent around to us yesterday. Took a few minutes to review, so I sent back comments to you yesterday, which I see are incorporated in this copy.
The only major change that I've made is that the committee will sunset on the
31st day of January 2020 rather than the last day of 2019, simply so that there's at least 30 days overlap between this board and the next board of commissioners to make the decision.
Yep, wanted to keep it.
So that was my only comment. Otherwise, it looks good. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 3113, basically affirming the findings in the Human Services Summit report and authorizing the creation of a Human Services Summit committee to carry out the findings of the report.
I'll second that.
Very good. Motion is made and properly seconded. Discussion from the board.
I would like to ask you to consider Judy Baker's comments to change the setup of the board, the advisory board.
Well, the only thing I would say is the resolution doesn't state who exactly is going to be on the board. So
Right.
naturally,
I'm seeing
definitely make sure that there are families involved in the committee, and I totally agree with everything she said related to that.
Any other comments from the board?
Is that the only correction, is the date, sunset date?
Yep, that's it. Everything else is stayed the same.
Any public comment? All right. The motion before us is to pass Resolution 3113, presented by Commissioner Eggleston. If there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, 2 requests for Act 13 dollars. The first is from Freehold Township. That's for $33,921. And one from Brokenstraw Township, which is for $72,000 even. These were both submitted to the Planning and Zoning Office, who has reviewed the applications and recommended them to us. This is Act 13 dollars for designated for bridges only. Other townships have participated in this program and successfully replaced some of the bridges. The reason that this is allocated to the county but not used by the county is because we do not own any bridges, and so we gift it to the municipalities on an as-needed basis. If we approve both of these applications, it will bring the balance of that funds down to approximately $55,000, which is approximately the amount that we receive from the state every year due to Act 13. I would like to go ahead and take both Freehold Township and Brokenstraw Township's applications in one motion, if I hear a motion.
Oh, so moved.
Hear a second?
I will second.
To be clear, the motion is to approve the applications, one from Freehold for $33,921 and from Brokenstraw Township for $72,000. Discussion from the board?
What was the broken straw amount?
$72,000 even. Any public comment? All those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to Freehold and Brokenstraw Townships. And again, it looks like until next year, we probably only have enough funding for one bridge. So that'll be most likely be it. Glade. We've already given Glade money.
Well, we tried, yeah.
Okay. We will look forward to your application. Next on the agenda, repository bids. Is Phil here? Oh, Phil is here. Thank you. Did you want to present the repository bids?
That's pretty standard. Two properties, one in Sheffield and one in Pine.
All right. The two before us, tax parcel number SH3549194 in Sheffield on 2nd Mill Street, currently owned by Edward Shaneberger. Charles Michael Crooks has bid on it in the amount of $1,111.11. The second is Whiskey November 2576444 in Pine Grove. This would be a cottage place currently owned by Cheryl Wilson. The bidder is John and Ashley Golisek, and that is for $950. Any questions for Phil from the board? Do I hear a motion to approve the repository bids?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Discussion? Public comment?
I have a question for Phil. Would you give me the price of that Sheffield property at 2 Mill Street that you was after the bid on?
$1,111.11. 111111.
Thank you.
Other discussion? motion before us is to accept the two tax bids that I already stated. Please state aye if you vote in favor.
Aye.
Nay if opposed. Motion carries unanimously. County Operations Plan we've already hit. E&M Engineering. Commissioner Eggleston, would you refresh us?
I'd make a motion to table the E&M engineers' proposal for the parking lot until the next meeting, just because they're in the process of putting together a comprehensive or some kind of cost estimate as far as the actual development that should be done by the end of the week. So I would say then we'd want to evaluate that. I think that would be a better thing to evaluate.
Motion to table for the E&M proposal for the parking lot. Do I hear a second?
I will second that. Can we have some discussion?
Actually, it's a non-debatable point.
Okay.
Let's talk about it at the work session.
All right.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion to table accepted. Personnel transaction reports. The only change is that due to the passing of the Prothonotary Jennifer Phillips as the first deputy Prothonotary, effective on Monday, is now the acting Prothonotary. The county code is the one that dictates this, so it did not go before salary board. Section 408 makes it quite clear that unless the deputy makes more than the elected official, the acting Prothonotary will then take on the same annual rate, which in this case is $52,561.62 for a total package of, including all benefits, $72,153.78. Again, this is effective back to Monday. She effectively took over immediately upon death and swearing in on Monday. However, the county code in section 408 and 409 also makes it clear that the governor is supposed to appoint affirm the appointment within the next 90 days. However, from what I understand, at least in Forest County, the governor has made no appointments in his term. So you have a vacancy, correct?
Our treasurer vacancy is, we're trying to get, and she has been nominated and passed to the Senate, but it's just waiting for the governor's
approval
to do it. Carbon County's in a worse predicament than that. They don't even have their person nominated, and I believe that was a Prothonotary also.
Very good. Commissioner, since you're here, what was the process that you went through in order to get the nomination to the Senate?
Just approach your senator to make that nomination, to get it through there. Get as much letters of support as you can from your row officers and everything in parties.
Okay. The other thing I was going to note related to this is that we'll go through that process and talk to Senators Hutchinson and Brooks in order to get Jennifer Phillips on the list, I suppose. I would assume then acting until such time as either elected or the governor appoints. The county code also makes it clear that the position will need to be filled by election at the next municipal election, which is actually next year. So that election will only be a 2-year term until it is back on the normal cycle for Prothonotary, which point it would be 4-year terms from then going on. Again, that's my understanding based on my reading of 408, section 409, and 401B of the county code. That's basically just an announcement, so I'd ask for a motion to ratify the personnel transaction report before you.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That is it on the agenda. For commissioner comments, I was just going to comment that I spoke with the Innovation Collaborative. We had Beth Zimmer come in to speak to the Board of Commissioners a few weeks ago at a work session. We were moving forward with trying to get an ice house training started. I'm going to be talking to the school district about it. Erie County had several classes, from what I understand, go through the program, and it's basically entrepreneurship training for 7th, 8th, 9th graders in that area. Erie County had some great success with it, and I'm going to be advocating that we do that here. that would hopefully be funded by the United Fund, much like it was funded in Erie County, in partnership with the school district, if that's a go. But in order to train the trainers, I'm wondering if the county could consider paying $100 per teacher to go through the project. My anticipation would be that would be $1,100 to $1,500, and it could be in the next budget cycle, and it could go through endowment funds. So it's more just letting you know that that's a request that I'm going to be making during budget season. I also attended a manufacturing summit yesterday regarding the petrochemical plant going into Beaver County and the ripple effect it'll have on our local economy. I will get the PowerPoint slides and send them to the other commissioners. And due to the length of the meeting, I will skip all my other comments about the 50 and 50 program and talk about that at either the next meeting or the work session. Any other commissioner comments? Last chance for public discussion, public comment. Very good. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.